He was rejected by every college he dreamed of. Too poor, too ordinary, too invisible. But when the world shut him out, he built something it could never ignore. They called it the human algorithm. A code that changed how machines understand emotion. And now, the same universities that turned him away teach his creation in their classrooms. This is the story of the boy who couldn't afford a degree, but built the future they all study now. Rain tapped gently on the cracked window pane as Jordan Miles stared at the envelope trembling in his hands. It was thick, official-looking, the kind that carried dreams inside. The kind he'd been waiting on for months. Across the small kitchen table, his mother, Denise, leaned forward, her work apron still on, eyes hopeful. "Go on, baby," she whispered. "Open it." Jordan tore the seal, heart pounding. The bold letters read, "Congratulations! You've been accepted to Stanford University." For a moment, the world stopped. His mother's face lit up like sunrise after a long night. She gasped, pressed her hands to her mouth, and laughed through tears. "You did it, Jordan! Oh my God, you did it!" Jordan stood there, stunned, smiling, then laughing, then hugging her tight. All those nights studying in the flickering light of a dying bulb, all those hours fixing old computers for neighbors to afford internet time, it finally paid off. But the joy was short-lived. They sat down together to read the details: tuition, housing, living costs, fees. As the numbers stacked up, the laughter faded. Denise's hands trembled as she whispered, $70,000 a year? Jordan's smile broke. There's got to be some scholarship, right? I can work part-time, maybe." She shook her head gently. "Baby, I can't even pay rent on time. I'm behind on the light bill. I'm sorry." The silence after that was heavier than any storm outside. That night, Jordan lay awake in his small bedroom, walls covered in tech posters, wires dangling from shelves, his old second-hand computer humming softly. He stared at the acceptance letter pinned on the wall. It didn't feel like a door opening anymore. It felt like a reminder of everything he couldn't have. The next morning, his best friend Trey came over. When Jordan told him about the cost, Trey sighed. "Man, college ain't for everyone. You smart enough already. Just get a job, stack some bread." Jordan forced a laugh. "Yeah, maybe you're right." But inside, he was screaming. He wanted to build things, apps, programs, inventions that changed lives. He wanted to prove that a kid from Detroit's East Side could matter in the world of technology. But without college, what future was left? Weeks turned into months. The Stanford letter yellowed on his wall. Jordan took a job at a small phone repair shop, run by a kind Indian man named Mr. Patel. Every day, he watched customers drop off broken iPhones and shattered tablets, people who could afford what he never could. He'd sit behind the counter, soldering wires, replacing screens, listening to college students argue about code and startups while sipping overpriced coffee. Sometimes, Jordan would pause mid-repair and watch them through the glass. Their backpacks, their laughter, their careless freedom. He didn't envy them for being smarter. He envied them for being allowed to dream. One evening, Mr. Patel found him still at the shop after closing. "Jordan, my boy," he said softly, "you always the last to leave. You like fixing things too much." Jordan smiled faintly. "I guess broken things make sense to me." Mr. Patel chuckled and went to the back room, then returned carrying an old, dust-covered laptop. "Someone left this here last year. They never came back for it. Maybe you can fix it, yes?" Jordan blinked. The thing looked ancient, a cracked screen, missing keys, battery dead. But to him, it was gold. "I'll try," he said quietly. That night, he carried it home like treasure. Hours passed as he took it apart on his small wooden table. He cleaned the fan, replaced screws, borrowed a charger from an old neighbor. When it finally powered on, the screen flickered weakly to life, faint, blue, and broken, but alive. Jordan smiled for the first time in months. He opened YouTube, typed, "How to learn coding from scratch." And just like that, something inside him woke up. Night after night, After long shifts at the repair shop, he'd sit in that same spot, tired eyes glowing in the light of that battered laptop, learning one line of code at a time. He didn't have a professor. He didn't have classmates. He had hunger, the kind that refuses to die. His mother would sometimes peek in at midnight. "Jordan, baby, you need sleep," she'd whisper. He'd nod, then whisper back, "Just one more line of code, Ma. Just one more." Days bled into nights. His fingertips grew callous from typing on missing keys. His back ached from leaning over that old desk. But slowly, he started to understand it. How commands shaped logic. How code could solve problems. How maybe this was his way back to the dream he thought he lost. And though he didn't know it yet, that old broken laptop would soon open a door that no university ever could. The nights grew longer. And so did Jordan's obsession. What started as curiosity had become something deeper, a ritual. Every night, after work, he'd pull his chair close to that flickering laptop, type until his eyes burned, and whisper to himself lines of code like prayers. He wasn't just learning programming anymore. He was learning himself. Sometimes he'd fail. A single missing bracket could crash everything he'd spent hours building. And each time it happened, he'd groan, lean back, and rub his face in frustration. But then, he'd try again. Because Jordan had grown up fixing broken things, phones, radios, old fans. Now he was fixing himself, line by line, bug by bug. At the shop, customers would come and go. Mr. Patel noticed how Jordan's eyes often drifted, not toward the money in the register, but toward the world outside. He saw the hunger there. One afternoon, he called him over. "Jordan," he said, "you're good with computers. You fix better than I sell. Why not start something of your own?" Jordan laughed bitterly. "Start what? I don't even own this shirt. You think anyone's gonna trust a broke kid from the east side to build something?" Mr. Patel smiled. "Genius doesn't ask for permission, my boy. It just builds." Those words stuck with him. That night, Jordan walked home through the rain, hoodie pulled tight, the city lights blurring around him. He thought about what Mr. Patel said. He thought about all the things that never seemed fair, how rich kids could fail and still land softly, while he had to climb mountains just to stand still. But something inside him snapped, not in anger, but in determination. He whispered under his breath, "If they won't let me in their classroom, I'll build my own." From that moment, everything changed. He began to treat his tiny bedroom like a lab. He built apps, small ones at first. A calculator. A basic weather tool. Then a chatbot that could answer simple questions. Most of them didn't work right. But each project taught him something new, a pattern, a logic, a rhythm. He joined free online communities, messaging strangers across the world who were also self-taught. They shared links, tutorials, challenges. Jordan didn't have classmates, but he found a tribe. Weeks turned into months. He started freelancing, fixing websites for small local businesses. The pay was terrible, but the learning was priceless. He'd watch YouTube videos of Silicon Valley founders, their shiny offices, their fancy talks, and he'd whisper, "One day." Then came the night that changed everything. It was past midnight. Rain again, Detroit rain, steady and cold. Jordan was working on a side project, a small app that could predict what kind of phone issue a customer had just by describing the symptoms. He was building it to help Mr. Patel's shop handle customers faster. But as he coded, he noticed something strange, a pattern in the way people typed their problems. Words. Phrases. Each one hinted not just at the problem, but at the person, their frustration, their emotion. And that's when the idea hit him. What if code could understand human emotion? Not just read it, but learn from it. He sat back, staring at the screen, heartbeat pounding. Every tech video he'd ever watched, every word he'd ever studied, began to connect like puzzle pieces. Machine learning. Sentiment analysis. Data patterns. He didn't know what to call it yet, but he knew he had found his purpose. For the next few weeks, Jordan barely slept. He dove into online forums, downloaded free datasets, and watched coding lectures until his eyes blurred. His mother began to worry. One night, she knocked on his door. "Baby, you eating at all?" He looked up from the screen, exhausted but smiling. "Ma, I think I'm close to something. I just need more time." She sighed. "Just promise me it's worth it." He looked her in the eyes and said softly, "It will be. One day, people will study this." At work, he used every chance to test his code quietly. He'd listen to how customers described their phone problems, analyze their tone, their words, feeding those little moments into his growing program. His coworkers didn't get it. They just saw a quiet, tired kid typing too much on an old laptop. But Jordan saw a revolution forming on that cracked screen. Then came the first test. He built a small demo, a chatbot that could predict if a message sounded angry, sad, or happy. He showed it to Trey, his best friend, who nearly laughed. "Bro, you telling me a computer can feel what I feel? Get out of here." Jordan just smiled. "Not feel it. Understand it." He typed in a message. "I can't believe you messed this up again." The program blinked, then replied, "Detected frustration." Trey's jaw dropped. "Wait, what?" Jordan typed again. "I'm proud of you." The program replied, "Detected joy." Trey stood there speechless. "Bro, you just made a computer read emotions." Jordan grinned. "Not perfectly. But it's a start." He didn't know it then, but he had just built the earliest version of what would later become one of the most studied algorithms in emotional AI. He named it Project Pulse. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't fast. But it worked. As the days passed, more people started hearing about it. A small local tech blogger wrote an article. "Detroit kid builds emotion reading software." At first, Jordan thought it was a joke. But the story spread, shared, reposted, retweeted. And soon, emails started pouring in. A startup in California wanted to see his code. A professor from MIT asked if he'd be interested in sharing his research. And all Jordan could think was, "Research? I never even got to go to college." One night, while staring at the growing inbox of opportunities, Jordan looked up at that old Stanford letter still pinned to his wall. The same one that had once broken his heart. Now, it just made him smile. He whispered, "Guess I didn't need a classroom after all." When Jordan woke up that morning, the world had already changed. His phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Hundreds of notifications, emails, DMs, mentions. All because of one blog post that called him the self-taught genius from Detroit. He scrolled in disbelief. Comments flooded in. "Who is this kid? This is the future of AI. Hire him before Google does." It didn't feel real. He was still in the same tiny apartment, same flickering light, same second-hand laptop. But the world was finally looking his way. At the repair shop, Mr. Patel waved the newspaper at him. "Look at you! Local hero, eh?" Jordan smiled shyly. "It's just a small article." Mr. Patel shook his head. "No, Jordan. This is how big things start." For the first time in years, Jordan walked home that night with his head high. People recognized him, a few even stopped to take pictures. It was strange. Beautiful, but strange. Days later, his inbox buzzed again, this time with something bigger. Subject: Collaboration Inquiry, Neural Dynamics Corporation. Jordan blinked. Neural Dynamics? That was one of the top AI research companies in the country. The message was short and direct. "We've read about your work on emotion recognition algorithms. We'd like to discuss a possible partnership. Are you available for a virtual meeting?" His hands trembled as he read it. He whispered, "They actually want me." The meeting took place over Zoom. Jordan sat nervously in his best shirt, which was still just a faded hoodie. On the other side of the screen sat 3 executives in polished offices. "Jordan," one of them said, "your algorithm is revolutionary. You've managed to create a sentiment recognition model that adapts contextually. That's rare. He smiled awkwardly. I just wanted to make computers understand people better. The man chuckled. Well, you've done more than that. We'd like to fund your work, 6 figures to start. Jordan froze. 6 figures? More money than he had ever seen in his life. What would I have to do? Nothing different, they said. Just join our team. You'll have resources, data access, mentorship. You can take Project Pulse to the next level. It sounded perfect. Too perfect. That night, Jordan couldn't sleep. He lay on his bed staring at the ceiling. All his life, he'd wanted a chance like this, a seat at the table. But something in him felt uneasy. He thought about the small promise he made to himself, that his work would help people, not just make profits. Still, he couldn't turn it down. So he said yes. For the first time ever, Jordan boarded a plane. Destination, San Francisco. The city looked like another planet, sleek glass buildings, electric cars, people rushing with coffee cups and expensive shoes. When he entered the neurodynamics office, he was overwhelmed. Smart screens everywhere. Robots delivering coffee. Engineers with badges that read PhD, MIT, Stanford. And then there was him, the kid who couldn't afford college. His mentor at the company, Dr. Collins, was a middle-aged researcher with a calm, commanding presence. Jordan, he said, you've got something special. Let's refine it, make it commercial-ready. You could change how humans and machines communicate. Jordan felt proud. But soon, he realized something. They weren't just using his algorithm to understand emotion. They were training it to influence emotion. When he asked about it, Dr. Collins replied, It's just business, Jordan. If our clients can predict how people feel, they can sell better, advertise better. You understand, this is innovation. Jordan hesitated. Yeah, he murmured. Innovation. But deep down, something didn't feel right. Weeks turned into months. Jordan's name appeared in tech magazines. He bought his mom a new apartment. For the first time, they didn't have to count coins for groceries. Success looked beautiful from the outside. But it started to eat at him from the inside. He noticed how Project Pulse was being used, not for therapy or understanding, but to manipulate people's choices, their emotions, their buying habits. It was like watching his dream become a weapon. One night, Jordan stayed late in the lab. He opened the company's internal files, something he wasn't supposed to do. What he found made his stomach drop. His algorithm had been sold to multiple corporations, even political groups. They were using it to analyze voters' emotions and shape online propaganda. He stared at the screen, his reflection ghostly in the glass. All that work, all those sleepless nights, being twisted into something he never intended. He whispered to himself, I didn't build this for control. I built it for connection. The next day, he confronted Dr. Collins. You're using my work for manipulation, he said, voice trembling. This isn't what I agreed to. Dr. Collins looked at him coldly. You built it, Jordan. We funded it. It's ours now. Jordan's heart sank. He tried to argue, but the contract he signed months ago gave them ownership rights. He had sold his dream. And they were cashing it in. For the next few weeks, he moved through work like a ghost. He'd stare at the glowing lines of code on his screen, the same ones that once made him proud. Now they made him sick. He wanted to quit, but they had him bound legally. He wanted to fight, but he didn't have the power or the money. Until one day, something unexpected happened. He received an email from a professor at MIT. Mr. Jordan Walker, I've been following your journey since your algorithm first went public. I want you to know, students are now studying Project Pulse in my artificial intelligence ethics class. What you created is changing how we think about emotional AI, both its promise and its danger. You've started a conversation the world needed. Jordan read the message 3 times. He couldn't stop smiling, even as his eyes filled with tears. They were studying him. The kid who once mopped floors to afford Wi-Fi. The boy who was told college was too expensive. The man who had built something too powerful to ignore. That night, he went to the rooftop of his apartment building. The city lights shimmered below him. He looked at the stars and whispered, "They study me now, but I'm still learning." He realized something profound. He didn't need permission from corporations to make a difference. He just needed his mind, his code, and his purpose. So he made a choice. He quietly began rebuilding Project Pulse from scratch, a clean, independent version. This time, not for profit, not for manipulation, but for empathy. He started a small online platform where users could talk to an AI that simply listened, a space for people to vent, to share, to be understood. Within weeks, thousands joined. It wasn't sleek or commercial, but it was real. People called it the human algorithm. And just like that, Jordan Walker found peace again, not in money, not in fame, but in meaning. Jordan thought he was free. Free from the endless meetings. Free from the boardroom smiles hiding knives. Free from the world that tried to own his mind. For a while, he was. His new platform, the human algorithm, began small. A few dozen users, then a few hundred. Then one morning, he woke up to see the number hit 50,000. People were sharing their stories online. "This AI doesn't judge, it just listens. Talking to it feels like therapy. For the first time, I feel heard." Jordan sat in his small apartment, watching the comments scroll by. A tear slipped down his cheek. For once, technology was healing people, not manipulating them. He whispered, This is what I wanted from the start." But the peace didn't last long. 2 weeks later, his phone rang. Unknown number. He hesitated before answering. "Mr. Walker," a cold voice said. "This is legal affairs from Neural Dynamics." His stomach tightened. "We're aware you've developed a new algorithm similar to the one you created under contract with us. You're in violation of non-compete and intellectual property clauses." Jordan froze. "This isn't your algorithm. I rewrote it from scratch." "That's not how the law sees it," the voice replied. "If you don't take it down, we'll see you in court." The line went dead. He sat there for a long time, staring at the cracked phone screen. His chest felt heavy. He knew this would happen eventually, but he hadn't expected it so soon. They weren't going to let him go. They never intended to. That night, he called his old mentor, Mr. Patel. The man's voice was still warm, still kind. "Jordan, my boy. What's troubling you?" Jordan sighed. "They're trying to shut me down. The company. They say I stole something I built with my own mind." Mr. Patel was silent for a moment. Then he said, "You know what this means, don't you?" "What?" "You built something powerful enough to scare them." The next few weeks were chaos. Lawyers sent letters. Emails poured in with threats masked as notices. But what shocked Jordan most was the public support. Once people found out about the human algorithm, and the corporation trying to silence it, they rallied. #StandWithJordan began trending. Users shared stories of how the app had helped them through depression, loneliness, even suicidal thoughts. The media picked it up. Suddenly, Jordan Walker, the boy who couldn't afford college, was on national news. He sat under the bright studio lights, hands clasped tightly as the interviewer asked, "Jordan, you built one of the most studied AI models in the world, and now you're facing lawsuits from a billion-dollar company. What drives you to keep going?" He looked into the camera, his voice calm but steady. "Because this isn't about me. It's about what technology should stand for. We can build machines that understand people, not exploit them. That's what I believe in." The room went silent. Even the interviewer didn't have a follow-up right away. After that night, Jordan's story spread like wildfire. Students, tech workers, activists, they all began defending his cause. Petitions circulated. Crowdfunding started for his legal defense. But for every person cheering him on, there were others working quietly against him. Neural Dynamics filed an official lawsuit, claiming he violated company confidentiality. They demanded the human algorithm be taken offline immediately. And when Jordan refused, they escalated. Late one evening, while Jordan sat coding at his desk, the app crashed. Everything went offline, the servers, the website, even the backups. He tried rebooting, rerouting, restoring, nothing worked. He opened the logs and froze. Someone had hacked him. He recognized the digital fingerprint. It belonged to the same cybersecurity firm Neural Dynamics used. He leaned back, whispering, "They killed it." The next morning, his story exploded again. Startup founder's app mysteriously hacked after corporate lawsuit. People began connecting the dots. The corporation denied involvement, but the timing was too perfect. Support for Jordan grew louder. But so did the pressure. News outlets camped outside his apartment. Investors offered him deals, some genuine, others clearly bait. It was all too much. One evening, his mother called. "Baby, I'm scared for you. These people have power." "I know, Ma," he said quietly. "But I can't stop now. If I do, everything I believed in dies." She was quiet for a moment. Then softly, "Then don't let them win." With the help of a few programmer friends he'd met online, Jordan began rebuilding everything from scratch, again. This time, he decentralized it. No single server. No central control. Just a network of volunteers running it from around the world. It couldn't be shut down. They called it PulseNet. And within days, it was back online, stronger, safer, faster. When users logged in again, a new message greeted them. They tried to silence connection. But connection speaks louder. The world went wild. News anchors called it the people's algorithm. Philosophers debated its meaning. Tech companies scrambled to copy it. And somewhere in a glass office tower, the executives at Neural Dynamics watched helplessly as the system they once tried to bury became unstoppable. Dr. Collins, his old mentor, watched from afar, proud yet guilty. He sent Jordan a short message one night. "You did it. You reminded us what technology is supposed to be. I'm sorry for how they treated you." Jordan didn't reply. He didn't need to. The work spoke louder. Months passed. Lawsuits faded. The story became legend, a case study in universities, a moral tale in the tech world. And Jordan? He stayed the same. Still coding late into the night. Still chasing ideas bigger than himself. But now, the world listened. One evening, as he walked through his old Detroit neighborhood, he stopped by the corner store where it all began, Mr. Patel's place. The bell above the door still jingled the same way. Mr. Patel looked up, smiling. "Ah, the famous man returns." Jordan laughed. "I'm still just me." Mr. Patel leaned forward. "Maybe. But look at what just you has done." Outside, the city buzzed, kids laughing, cars passing, the smell of food on the wind. Jordan stood on that same cracked sidewalk where he once dreamed of more. He took a deep breath and smiled. "They studied me. They tried to own me. But all I ever wanted was to help people feel less alone." He looked up at the glowing skyline, the world forever changed by a dream that started on a broken laptop. Years passed. But the legend of the human algorithm never faded. What began as a small rebellion in a Detroit apartment had turned into a global movement, a philosophy of technology rooted in empathy, understanding, and connection. It wasn't just an app anymore. It was a model. A framework. A symbol that humanity and machines could evolve together. Jordan Walker's name appeared in places he'd never imagined. University research papers. AI ethics symposiums. TED Talks. Even political speeches. But for him, the fame was secondary. He still lived simply, still coded through the night with the same focus he had as a kid staring at that flickering screen. His mother had retired, finally free of worry. Sometimes, when she'd visit, she'd watch him work quietly and whisper, "My son, the world finally sees you." And he'd smile and reply, "I don't want them to see me, Ma. I want them to see what's possible." Then one day, an envelope arrived. Cream-colored, official, embossed with a red seal. He turned it over, and froze. It was from Stanford University. The same school that had once rejected him. The same name that had haunted and driven him through every sleepless night. He tore it open with trembling hands. Dear Mr. Walker, we are honored to invite you as a guest lecturer for our course on artificial intelligence and human ethics. Your work on the human algorithm has become foundational in our curriculum. We would be deeply privileged if you could share your journey with our students. Jordan read it twice. Then a third time. Then he laughed softly, not out of mockery, but disbelief. He whispered, "The school that couldn't take me in, now wants me to teach." Weeks later, he stood at the entrance of the Stanford campus. Same red brick buildings he'd only seen in pictures. Same archways that once felt unreachable. But this time, he wasn't walking in with a dream. He was walking in with proof. A young assistant met him at the gate. "Mr. Walker, this way please. The auditorium's full, students, professors, media. Everyone's been waiting to hear you." Jordan smiled nervously. He had spoken at conferences before, but this felt different. This was personal. When he stepped onto the stage, the audience rose in applause. Hundreds of faces. Cameras flashing. A standing ovation for the boy who had once been told, "No." He stood silently for a moment, just letting it sink in. Then, he leaned toward the microphone. "Good evening," he began softly. "I'm not used to rooms like this. I used to fix phones, not give lectures." The audience chuckled warmly. He smiled, continuing, "Years ago, I got a letter from this very school. It said I didn't qualify for admission. I couldn't afford tuition. I didn't have the right background. But I had something no one could grade: hunger." He paused. The room was silent now, hanging on every word. "I spent years teaching myself to code. I failed more times than I can count. But I learned that brilliance doesn't live in buildings, it lives in belief. And belief is free." He told them about Project Pulse, about the sleepless nights, the lawsuits, the betrayals, and the redemption. He told them about the human algorithm, how it wasn't built from ambition, but from compassion. Then his tone softened. Technology isn't about replacing humans. It's about reminding us what makes us human in the first place. When he finished, the hall erupted in applause again, louder, longer, deeper. Professors wiped their eyes. Students stood on their chairs, clapping. And in that moment, Jordan didn't see status or class or privilege, just people who understood. Afterward, one of the professors approached him, shaking his hand. "Mr. Walker, your work has reshaped the way we teach AI. You've given it a conscience." Jordan smiled humbly. "I just gave it a heart." That night, he sat on a bench outside the Stanford auditorium, watching the California sunset burn gold and crimson across the horizon. A soft breeze rustled the leaves. His mother's words echoed in his mind. "The world finally sees you." He whispered back into the wind. "I see it too now, Ma." He thought of the boy he used to be, sitting in that cramped Detroit room, surrounded by dreams too heavy for his reality. And he smiled through the memory. But the story didn't end there. Months later, Stanford offered him a permanent role, not as a professor of computer science, but as the chair of human-centered artificial intelligence. He accepted. His first act? He opened a scholarship fund for underprivileged youth who couldn't afford college. He called it the Pulse Fellowship, named after the algorithm that changed his life. The program's motto was simple: "Genius needs opportunity, not permission." Every year, hundreds of students from poor backgrounds joined. They learned coding, ethics, emotional intelligence, everything Jordan had taught himself. And in each one, he saw a reflection of the kid he used to be. Sometimes he'd walk through the lab late at night, just watching the glow of computer screens and the energy of young minds at work. He'd whisper to himself, "Let them build better than I did." As the human algorithm spread across the world, it became more than just technology. Hospitals used it to detect patient distress. Schools used it to monitor student well-being. Even humanitarian organizations used it to identify online cries for help before tragedy struck. It was saving lives. Quietly. Softly. Exactly how Jordan wanted it to. Years later, during an award ceremony, he was invited to give a final reflection on his journey. He walked onto the stage, older now, a little slower, but with that same fire in his eyes. The host introduced him as Dr. Jordan Walker, pioneer of emotional AI and advocate for ethical technology. He chuckled softly before beginning. I never earned a doctorate. But I earned something better, a purpose. He looked around the room, scientists, innovators, policymakers. They used to say machines could never feel. Maybe that's true. But I learned something along the way. Machines don't need to feel if the people building them care. The room went silent again, not in emptiness but reverence. I built an algorithm, but the truth is, it built me too. After the event, as cameras flashed and people rushed to meet him, Jordan quietly slipped out a side door. He preferred the quiet. Outside, the night sky was clear, the stars sharp and endless. He walked alone, listening to the sound of his footsteps echoing on the pavement. Somewhere, deep inside, he could still hear the hum of that old laptop, the one that started it all. And with a gentle smile, he whispered, Guess I made it, after all.